Now that it is freezing outside and I am stuck in the house, I cannot help but think back to my summer in 2023. In this vlog, I will quickly review the adventures that I had with my boys and Ayana. Early on in the summer, while in the upstate of South Carolina, we shared a picnic at the Water Wheel, which is located off of the Chesnee Highway in Cherokee County. The Furnace Place historic site given to the citizens of Cherokee County in love and memory of William Gladden Hunt Smoke Jr. That same day, I took Ayana and the boys to an abandoned church in Wilkinsville. So this is a black church. This man drove a school bus. Here's somebody, I believe this person was in a Korean vet, Charles Edward Harris. This was a vet. Who was he? Dewey Lee Harris, North Carolina, 95th Engineers, World War II. Watch out for that little girl. I think that's a little girl. No, it's not. It was just her birthday. That's a Manning. There's a Knuckles. And then this is a grave. But it doesn't say anything. This is a beautiful church. You can see how they had the like triangular windows, and the bricks at the bottom made it kind of look like a castle. And then if you look over here in the corners, they have a stone. And I told Daddy, I said, oh, it looks so pretty with the ivy on it. And Daddy was like, that's poison ivy. Not your regular ivy. Anyway, it does talk about the Wesley Chapel Methodist Church, Wilkinsville, South Carolina, November the 15th, 1948. This wasn't broken down last time I was here. It looks like it come off the top. But anyway, so what happened is a storm actually came through and did so much damage that they had to close the building. And if you come in, I had a bell there. It was a pretty big church to be out in the middle of the country. Over here it's got its In God We Trust, Wesley Methodist Church, October the 2nd, 1915. L.C. Chamberlain pastor. The trustees A.L. Corey, Ellie Smith, S.W. Harris, Sam Smith, a Mitchin. Then it talks about J.S. Thomas, W.E. Corey, James Love, J.A. Peeler were associate members. James Smith and Lewis Tate. Well, what is this cool?
That looks like it's something out of Stranger Things.
Let's go around to the back this way, maybe. But I don't know if it had stained glass windows. I would think it probably didn't, but I don't know. And there's their outhouse, Ayana. Another church with an outhouse.
It is pretty with the
other side. After which, we ended our day at the visitor center for the Peach Festival dessert contest, where I entered my upside down peach cookies. During the summer, we also visited the Rowan County Museum to explore and check out the Peeler Cheerwine exhibit. After the museum, while in Salisbury, North Carolina, we walked and walked and walked some more. After which we drove until we finally reached Rockwell, North Carolina, which was an interesting and beautiful place. During our visit, we made sure to stay nourished and hydrated as we made our way to the Union Lutheran Church in Salisbury and the Lower Gray Stone Church in Rockwell to look for my Peeler relatives. Blessed are the dead that in the Lord die from now on. The Spirit says that they rest from their labors. That is what I was going to read in German. Even after all of that, we continued to drive, and we eventually found ourselves in Mecklenburg, North Carolina, at a historic church to look for the grave of Moses Tomlinson Jr. However, we were unsuccessful in finding his grave. One day, we drove to Kings Mountain National Military Park to take their over-the-phone tour. It was during this time that I think Ayana realized walking with boys is similar to herding cats. However, eventually we did make it to the summit. Here, the tides of the battle turned in the favor of the American colonies. After seeing the beautiful monuments, we headed to another part of the park's property and walked this time to the Hauser House. The owner, Henry Hauser, a stonemason from Pennsylvania, moved here and purchased much of the former battlefield. He then constructed this house in 1803. After looking around, we wandered back to the Hauser Cemetery. Besides spending time in Cherokee County, we spent a great amount of time in Kings Mountain, North Carolina. Besides having picnics at the park, we went at least 2 times to Mountain Rest Cemetery. We did so in an effort to find the grave of Washington Scoggins, my maternal great-great-grandfather. However, eventually it was discovered due to a fire. Records were lost, and with that, his location. It was suggested, due to not having a stone, he may have been buried in the Pauper's Field, which today overlooks a nearby football field. While in Kings Mountain, I made sure to look at the railroad tracks, as that is how my great-great-grandfather Washington lost his life. On a happier note, we also rode around listening to music and looking for historical houses and murals. Of course, we could not leave without stopping at the local coffee house for some caffeine. The Battle of Kings Mountain over the mountain men from Tennessee, Virginia, and North Carolina led Patriots to victory over the British October the 7th, 1780, site 7 miles south. An early settler to Kings Mountain, William Andrew Mooney, built a store on this site in 1870. In downtown Kings Mountain, he turned the store 90 degrees and added 2-story structure to the front to make this home. This is the oldest unaltered home in Kings Mountain and was restored in the 2000s by Kings Mountain Historical Home Preservation under the direction of Mary S. Nestler. City of King Mountain Trail Connector Trail. George Washington Cornwell House. The next day, we headed back to North Carolina, but this time to Cherryville. We took our time riding up and down the old Main Street. Then we ended up back on the country roads as we headed towards Krause, North Carolina, and Gaston Webb's Chapel Road. When we arrived at the end of the road, we were lucky to find the owner home, and he gave us permission to drive down his dirt road into his woods to look for a grave. When we finally made it to a clearing on a hill, we found the grave of Revolutionary War veteran C.Z. Carpenter and his wife Mary. My children and I are kin to them through their daughter Mary Wisnut, their grandson George Michael Wisnut, their great-great-grandson John, and their great-great-great-grandson William, who I spoke of earlier, as he married Susanna Hauser of Kings Mountain. Before the end of that long day, we actually ended up in Blacksburg, South Carolina, at yet another cemetery, as I wanted to find the grave of my great-great-grandfather, William Wisnut. Oh no, there's been a lot of vandalism. I hate that. At least they didn't hurt his. I didn't even know he was a Confederate. I also wanted to show Ayana the unmarked grave of the Gaffney Strangler. Of course, during the summer, we did a lot more than just ride around. On Tuesdays and Thursdays, while my son went to Sylvan in order to prepare for the following school year, we went to Barnes & Noble for lattes and to browse around. During the summer, we also tried to find cheap or even free places to swim. We ended up at Glendale Shoals, Clifton Beach, and here at the Burnt Mill in Blacksburg. Because we had been so successful at finding my ancestors' graves, I decided that we would once again travel the country roads of Kings Mountain, only this time in search of William Michael Wisnut's mother-in-law, Elizabeth Blaylock McGill. Elizabeth was buried with her second husband in Bethel Church Cemetery, which was very hard to find. In fact, I had to knock on at least 2 doors before I found someone who knew where it was. Ironically, upon leaving, we decided to find Elizabeth's first husband and my relative, Daniel Ashbury Fulton. In doing so, we drove back to the same road we had been on the day before when we went swimming at the Burnt Mill. Only this time we went all the way to the end of Freeman Road, after which I had to walk to a home and knock on a door again. This time we were lucky enough to get permission and to get escorted down an old path to the graves. In this small family burial plot, not only is Elizabeth's 39-year-old first husband laid to rest, but also her sister Mary and her parents Lucy and Jeremiah. Interestingly, Jeremiah also happens to be a Revolutionary War soldier. From our escort, we also found out that the family had been pretty wealthy, and grave robbers actually dug up the graves. Luckily, these thieves were caught due to the large amount of silver that they had pillaged. Stop, Miller. Don't knock it over, honey. It's so old. We want it to
fall, you'll break your leg, boy.
It's heavy. After being so lucky at finding these graves, we ended up in York, where we looked for Daniel's parents, James and Anastasia Fulton. Online, while it says they are buried at Trinity Methodist Church, that is not exactly true. When we arrived, it didn't take long for us to realize there was no cemetery at the church. we discovered that the cemetery, also known as the Old Settler Cemetery, was actually 2 streets behind the church. Upon finding the graves, I was so excited to read that James was also a patriot. And upon further investigation, I discovered that Anastasia's father was as well. However, he tragically lost his life at the Battle of Germantown. Of course, while in York, we had lunch at Zaxby's and then went exploring the downtown area, the old downtown area. Yorkville Female Institute. Yorkville Female Institute of Yorkville Female College was the first school here. It was a private school and then a public school in 54 to 87. One day we drove to Smyrna, South Carolina, which is the smallest town I have ever been in. This town was named for Smyrna Associated Reformed Presbyterian Church. Organized in 1842, an academy was established here in 1870, and in 1888 the Charleston, Cincinnati, Chicago Railroad completed its line here. 4 years later, the post office was established. The town was incorporated in 1895. Its limits extend 1/2 mile in every direction from the railroad depot. Of course, if you haven't figured out, we came for a cemetery, the Martin, also known as the Ramsey Cemetery. This burial ground, while located on Rivers Road between Wolf Creek and Kings Creek, can be hard to find, especially in the summer. Of course, it didn't take me long. I actually only had to knock on one door, and we found an older lady who escorted us on a 4-wheeler. She informed us that she had only ever heard that the burial ground was called the Hamrick Cemetery. I told her that was understandable, as many Martins married Hamricks. Upon getting permission, we entered the property. Interestingly, the people buried here are not only my relatives, but Ayana's as well. This was due to my great-great-grandma, Christina Martin Peeler, having a sister named Matilda. Matilda Martin Westmoreland is Ayana's great-great-great-grandmother, while Christina and Matilda's parents are buried at Hopewell. Their grandparents, Morgan Martin and Jane Ramsey, are. In addition, Jane's parents, John and Sarah Ramsey, are here as well. I've never seen such a patriotic graveyard. Let's just move this on over. Hey, this is it. This is it. This is it. Sarah Ramsey. So this is also a relative. I thought it said something else, but it is Ramsey. It's a good thing we came at the 4th of July, or we might have missed it. In regards to battlefields, besides Kings Mountain, we also walked the much flatter Cowpens Battlefield Trail.
Why didn't you go way up by the trail?
Oh. Of course, after walking the trail, I drove us to the park's main sign, and we walked down a path that led to a cemetery. All right, yeah, can't make that out.
Ow.
All right, well, get your chalk. Let's go. One of the things that we did this summer that I was really excited and nervous about was drinking water from limestone springs. Of course, I did buy a special filtration cup. Does it taste funny to you?
It tastes like water.
Okay. Supposedly, the water has healing properties as it flows through amethyst. That evening, while in Cherokee County, we took another walk, this time on public hunting land just for fun. Another thing that we did just for fun was to travel to Anderson. While we were on our way, we stopped at the location of the first textile mill, which was a Greenville County park.
And of course there, is that right, Mommy?
After a brief look around, we continued on our way to Crybaby Bridge, which is supposedly one of the most haunted places in South Carolina. While I don't personally believe in ghosts, I will admit the wind does make some strange sounds, but it is freaky. Next, we stopped for a little swim at Lake Hartwell State Park before heading to where I was the most excited, Fort Rutledge. Of course, I did not realize that Fort Rutledge was on a Clemson golf course. And while the men golfing there were much too young for me and much too old for Ayana, we did not mind looking. Seneca Town on the Seneca River of present-day Seneca was one of several Cherokee lower towns. On August the 1st, 1776, Major Andrew Williamson, South Carolina militia, don't get run over, on a raid against these towns was ambushed by loyalists in Cherokee nearby. The eventual Patriot victory was also notable for the death of Francis Salvador, the first Jewish patriot killed during the Revolution. On our way back from Clemson, we made sure to take our time and stop to look around at any interesting sights. Church Cemetery began in 1814 on the land donated by Frederick Owens. Owens was a Revolutionary War veteran and is interred here. Veterans from the Revolutionary War forward are also interred here. Agnes Wimpy was one of the first known burials in 1814. The cemetery has remained in use for over 200 years. Originally, I had planned for my family and I to go to Biltmore for Easter. However, it rained. So, during the summer, we went on our most expensive trip to Asheville. While in Asheville, we explored the Biltmore Gardens and went on a carriage ride. Of course, we also enjoyed a lunch at the McDonald's, an ice cream at the Biltmore, and dinner.
I want mine in a doggy bowl.
Oh, I'm sorry. The kids' meals don't come in a doggy bowl. You gotta eat your own.
During the summer, we also made many trips to Union, South Carolina. Of course, while in Union, we ate at the Dario and went to the museum. While at the museum, I found a sketch of the tree that Highkey Mosley climbed and his homemade pliers that he used to extract teeth. While there, I also looked for more information about relatives and their resting places. Charles A.W.
Okay, let's see.
I didn't know he was a Confederate veteran. Like every other place that we visited while in Union, South Carolina, we rode around so we could explore.
In 1871, one of the worst waves of white supremacy and violence in South Carolina history unfolded in Union County. During 2 raids in January and February of that year, 12 black men were forcibly taken from this jail by the Ku Klux Klan while awaiting trial.
Also looked at many graves. For the most part, we were successful. First, we went to Bethlehem Methodist Church. That's your Grandma Kelly. Grandma Kelly, and that's her husband. John W. Knox. Then we went to Foster's Chapel. Then we went to Porter's Burial Ground, which is across the street from Foster's on top of a hill. Color this one, Susan Gallman.
Okay.
There's more. You can do David Gallman, Louisa Foster, and Columbus Foster. Following that, we explored the Gilead Church Cemetery.
You want to come get your picture made with your grandpa?
which, due to its size, took several visits before I actually found the graves I was looking for.
Found it. Down the hill. Near the bricks. But this is who I was looking for. Mary P. Hodge and Gasaway Hodge.
Continue on Eisentown Road for 3/4 of a mile.
During one of those visits, we actually ended up at the Kelly Cemetery. This was very exciting because of one relative that's buried here. While Henry Ellis Fowler and Catherine Puckett Fowler do not have markers and only stones, they are said to be at the Kelly Cemetery. When I first got interested in reading historical novels, one of the first books I read was called The Old Iron District. Apparently, during the Revolutionary War, Henry Ellis was sent to retrieve a man's children and pregnant wife, and while doing so, fell in love with the land in Union, South Carolina. So after the war, he moved to Union. One of the interesting facts that the book talks about is that Henry Ellis and the pregnant woman he rescued both named their sons after a man who helped them, whose name happened to be Gasaway. Similar to Henry Ellis, in the book The Old Iron District, I read about Hickey Mosley, who I am also a relative of. Hickey was also a patriot soldier, named for his high-pitched singing voice. He was a blacksmith, dentist, and a hunter. On one particular hunt, after killing a deer, Hickey was chased by a pack of wolves and ended up climbing a tree. While I was most excited about Henry Ellis's grave, it was Hickey Mosley's grave that led to one of the scariest and most exciting adventures I had all summer. After getting information about the grave's whereabouts from a historian and author, I set out to find Hickey Mosley's grave. Unfortunately, while asking around, I did not listen to my gut, and I ended up following a rather young boy into the woods. This resulted in both of us becoming very lost. Fortunately, my boys and Ayana were safe in the car, and the boys' relatives eventually came on four-wheelers to rescue us. After which, I was so sweaty and dirty that we actually had to have a picnic dinner at a park.
You too?
However, I did not give up, and after several days, we went back, and eventually we were successful.
Mark it so we know which way to go. All right, that's good. Thank you. I found it. I went past it. There's a blue marker. But what caught my attention was the man who rescued me last time said that there was a giant cancer on a tree. And I found it.
Besides looking for graves, just riding around Union was very special to me. This is because I got to show Ayana and the boys the road that my Mama Peggy lived on as a girl. We also stopped at the Kelly One Stop for snacks. Across from the gas station there is a large house in which my Mama Peggy got to watch TV for the first time. In addition, I also got to show them where my Mama Peggy's primary school used to be. And we also drove around Jonesville, where Mama Peggy went to high school. Before finally leaving Union, we stopped at the Stardust Motel, where Mama Peggy and Papa Bobby honeymooned. One day, it was so hot, we went to Gaffney's new Irene pool. after which we walked around at the Veterans Park.
Hey, Alma's going to show us where Wayne's name is.
You got the markers.
Oh! What does it say? Department of the Air Force.
You got the markers, Mom.
Cool. Hey, there's my, there's your, grandpa, Boyce Scoggins.
Oh, I'm his grandma.
Well, you never knew him.
While walking around in the summer sun, we got hot again, so we went to Tommy's for the best ices.
Oh yeah, see how thick that cream is? That's what's up.
One day we traveled to the town of Cowpen, South Carolina, so we could stop by their cemetery and find Ayana's grandparents.
Well, you probably should get some pictures of these rocks, because I guarantee you they somebody.
While in Cowpens, we also stopped by a creamery. While my boys had ice cream, we had iced coffee. That day, we also went by Arrowwood Baptist Church, where I found the grave of my great-great-grandparents, David and Martha Martin. During one of our many conversations, when I found out that Ayana had never really been to the mountains, other than when we went to Asheville, I made sure to plan a trip. On our way to the mountains, we made several stops. First, we had brunch at the Pumpkin Town General Store and Cafe. Next, we stopped and took photos at Table Rock,
Visible 1.3 miles northwest of the south face of Table Rock, described in the 1820s as South Carolina's monarch of the mountains, part of the Cherokee land until 1777, the granite mountain, broad summit, and sheer precipice likely inspired its name. During the 1801 storm, Governor John Drayton and others exploring the 3,124-foot summit took shelter at a point on the west side, subsequently named Governor's Rock. 250-foot flights of wood steps were built to the summit northeast edge in the 1830s. A new species, later named Carolina hemlock, was first identified on the mountain in 1837. In the 1840s, the two-story Table Rock Hotel opened near the mountain's base. From 1935 to 1941, the Civilian Conservation Corps developed Table Rock State Park as one of the first in South Carolina state park systems.
Then we drove down the road to the Sassafras Observation Tower to see the highest spot in South Carolina.
You like the South Carolina side better. It's prettier. It is prettier. Carl, are we in the mountains?
No. I'm not.
The mountains?
Yeah, we are. We are on the Cascade Mountain.
While in Pickens County, we also stopped by the Hagwood Mill to look around and see pictographs.
There's something about this place that made them want to leave a message of having been here. A fire built, tools together, and work began, creating the first of what will become many figures.
Look, there's been some found in Spartanburg and Greenville. But our day was still far from over. Before it rained, we made it to Bald Rock to check out the view. After the rain, we just happened to be by Wildcat Falls, so we decided to get a funnel cake and splash around. Because Ayana likes abandoned houses and buildings, I took her to the abandoned and historic Mulberry Church. And on a different day, we ended up going to Lando to see their abandoned schoolhouse. During the summer, we made sure to spend some time with family and friends. At the end of summer, Ayana went with us to explore the houses of Gaffney. While in Gaffney, we also walked in the historic downtown. While downtown, we took our time to go see the new mural and read the historic plaques. Let's see.
It's like really old.
Oh, wow.
There's a 417 and a half. No, honestly. I mean, this is still a barber shop. You know, I never noticed that really thin building right there.
Was so nice. I'll make sure that I mention in the vlog that the Gaffney Prayer Room offered us refreshments. In fact, we stayed so busy on our last day of exploring. After the Peeler Davis house, we continued our goal of reading all of the historic markers in Cherokee County. By the time we made it to our last historical marker, it was dark, and we found ourselves at a cemetery. You gotta be still in the dark. Cheese. All right, come stand with me. Unfortunately, due to upload failure, I did end up losing some videos, including our trip to Blowing Rock, the Poinsett Bridge, and other small moments. However, regardless of that, I will never forget the great summer we shared in 2023. And I will continue to look forward to this year.